What's going on? Runner Rob here. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about how to deal with rushes as a driver and some helpful advice just as a driver that will really make you successful. Now, one of the best parts about getting on as a driver is catching the surges. Dinner time and lunchtime, because that's when a majority of your orders are going to come in. And when you do this, there's a real art to it. And if you do it right, you're going to be very successful. But if you do it wrong, you're going to feel constantly behind and stressed out. So, is doing multiple orders a bad thing? No. No, it is not. Not by far. And when we're minimum manned, you're going to end up doing it. You can try to do them one at a time, but you're going to be rushed and you're going to be stressed out. And most importantly, when you're rushed, you're not living by one of the Chow runner slogans, which is safe driver, safe community. And there's a lot to be said there. There's people exercising in Camp Pendleton. There's kids playing in front of houses, playing basketball and stuff. You don't be rushing around corners, because when you do make a mistake on that level, that $10, that $12 fare isn't worth it. So one of the biggest things is understanding when to pass on restaurants and when to go ahead and multi with restaurants. You do not want to go and overburden yourself with a bunch of different restaurants, especially, it looks appealing, but you try to do 4 restaurants close together, you're going to find yourself with 4 angry customers, especially if you're not communicating well. So, in my mind, I strategize by basically running a tier system of which restaurants I would like to do first. Let's scroll up here to make sure I'm pulled this up for the sheet. And I have a certain way to pick it out. Now, if you go to my sheet here, the first restaurants that I'll always hit up is any non-app based corporate restaurant. Now, why would that be? Because with non-app based corporate restaurants, something like, let's just take in a random example, Raising Cane's. They don't do any delivery service with any company, but a lot of delivery services want to deliver them. So they'll have their contractors with their cards go into the drive-thru and place the order and pick it up. Well, that means that their lines are going to be constantly long, which if you ever go to Raising Cane's, walk inside. Usually there's about a 40-car line and about 3 to 4 people at the cash register. Walk inside. Any non-app based corporate restaurant, though, I'm going to hit up. And being in that car line isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if you're doing multiple orders, the trick isn't to go ahead and pre-prep by ordering everything at the same time at the beginning and then getting on your journey. It's knowing when to order, when to stop and communicate with the customer, and when to actually call in the restaurant and say, hey, this is what I want. Hey, I'm going to be there in 40 minutes. And with some, you can do that, and we'll get to that. So non-app based corporate restaurants, I'm usually going to hit up first. And that line can give me time to deal with my second tier, which is app based corporate franchises. Like in a random example, Chipotle, right? They have an app. So while I'm driving through the line of Cane's, I'm typing in the app there. They usually take about 20 minutes to make an order and have it in the bag on the shelf ready to roll. Now, why wouldn't I do that at the beginning? Because it's part of something that'll make customers mad. We'll get back to that. But it's better to go ahead and take advantage of that time while you're in that line, waiting for cars to move so you can place your order, to take advantage of that time to push through and make other orders to restaurants. Now, beat that dead horse to the ground. App-based corporate franchises, real easy one to hit up while you're in other lines. Make the order. I'm going to go pick those up next. Call in franchises, something like, just in a random example, Denny's. I would go and hit up next, because the one nice thing about franchises is that they're always usually consistent with their menu and their times. Even when they're slammed, generally, they're pretty consistent. Ones that are slammed that aren't as consistent is mom and pop's restaurants. So I'll usually leave them last when I go to pick up those orders. And the nice thing about the mom and pop's places is you can usually call in and say, hey, I'm going to be 40 minutes when they tell you, hey, your order will be ready in 30. Hey, I'm not going to be there for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Okay. And the real beauty of this is usually a lot of the people that work there have a strong relationship to the restaurant, or the owner is the one answering the phone. And for that owner of that restaurant, this food is like their craft. So the last thing they want is a customer where food has been sitting on a shelf for an hour and a half and then headed to the customer, so they can be angry at the delivery company, angry at the restaurant. And being the company that we are, we'll take the hit for that. But, we're going to sit there and have words. So it's something that you don't want to get in the habit of, is trying to order way, way too far ahead. You gotta stagger this, and it's really a time game, because one of the 3 things that'll make customers mad, we're going to scroll down here, is number 1, when their food is prepped and sits. This is the number 1 thing during a rush hour that DoorDash has a big issue with, is, an order will go in, the restaurant will make it, they didn't tip high enough, so the order is like $3, and then it'll get kicked around between 5 or 6 drivers before a driver an hour and a half later comes and picks it up to take it. And then you have a customer that's mad. They're mad at writing bad reviews of the restaurant because they ordered a taco and now they have a soggy piece of cardboard from the sitting tomato juice. It's not something that you'd want. I wouldn't want that. So when food is prepped and it sits, people aren't happy. When you're rush and the order is wrong, we've had an issue with this in the past a couple of times. Slow down. You don't need to rush. You don't need to rush. We will never push you to the point where you're rushing to where, we're worried about you getting something incorrect there. If it comes to that point, then there's a problem on our side. When you don't communicate, and this is the huge issue that it is almost like an elephant in the room that we need to talk about. If you are talking with the customers and they understand that their food isn't going to sit, right? More than likely, they won't be mad if you don't get there for an hour and a half with their food because you have 3 orders ahead and you're the only driver on. They can kind of empathize and understand. But when you don't communicate for an hour and all they know is that they made an order and they have no clue or status of what's going on with their food, that's when customers get antsy and start hitting us up and saying, hey, what's going on here? And that's where it's rough. So take advantage of the time that you're in these lines for restaurants to communicate with them. If you communicate with the customer and say, hey, I've got to drop 2 orders off first because, they've been waiting for 40 minutes and I just got their orders, so I need to go and drop these off and then come back and pick up yours, and I won't order it until I'm here. Sometimes the customer will be okay with it. If they say cancel, we will never be mad at you for that because, it's just what we had to deal with time restrictions. That's not on you. It just means we need to go find more drivers. But if you're sitting there trying to pick up 4 or 5 orders at a time, now, all these customers have waited for 2 hours, then we're going to have a big issue because then you have 5 angry customers. And especially if you haven't been communicating with them. So slow down, don't rush. And if an order comes in that's like 5 minutes away from one place, but it came in 20 to 25 minutes later, pass by the place, pick up the 2 orders that's been, placed for 30 minutes now, just waiting, and go drop those off and then come back to the other place and communicate with the customer. Say, hey, I'm going to go drop these orders off and then I'm going to go back to pick yours up. And I'm not going to place it until I go in there, and usually they'll be okay with that. We're dealing with a service that's kind of understandable. We are limited bodied. And a lot of our customers kind of understand that concept. And, things will get better. But these 3 things right here are more than anything what I found that makes a customer mad. And if that third one in particular, if you communicate with the customer, you will find so much more leniency. Especially if they know that you're not going to end up doing number 1, which is they put an order in. In their mind, when they put an order in, they think that their order is immediately getting made. But that's usually not the case. You're going there to place the order. or calling it in. You know, we have a couple of restaurants on the email system, but again, our training is with that email system, they're not going to start making stuff until you actually call them. So in their mind, if they don't hear anything and then you show up 2 hours later with food, they think that they've been getting food that's just been sitting there, and they're going to be disgruntled and unhappy. And if they find the slightest thing off in their order, that's going to be the tipping point. So communicate. So load handling, definitely not a bad thing. Should do it more frequently. Again, doing onesie twosies are great, but the beauty of being an independent contractor, when you know how to load handle, is that's when you're going to make your most money during the rush. You know, you do 3 orders in an hour, and now you're making 30 to 35 bucks an hour compared to making 8 or 16, you know? Especially if you have one that's sitting on the 76. You pick up that order there, and then another order comes in for Jack in the Box. That's another 8 for you. And then an order at McDonald's. And with that time on Cane's, it just depends. I might go to McDonald's, but more than likely I'm going to go drop those other 2 off. And then by the time I'm going to pick up that McDonald's, another order comes in. I'll go in. If the McDonald's is 5 to 10 minutes away, okay, I'll go pick it up and then go for the other order. But if, that order's out in Oceanside, right outside the gate, I might go and just pick that up and pick up McDonald's on the way back. And I can't really dictate how you're going to do business. I can give you recommendations, but you're an independent contractor. One thing that I strongly recommend that you all have, I'm going to lean over here real quick. So this bag is probably not one of the best bags I've ever had. Ran me 15 bucks on Amazon. Insulated bag. I like the big ones. And the reason why is because if I have a huge order, I can put a bunch drink with its drink holders in there safely, snugly against the wall, and carry 5 or 6 drinks at the same time, which you're going to find you get big orders like that. It happens. Hospital orders, we don't get obviously as much now with the COVID situation. And honestly, I would think twice about taking a hospital order with the COVID situation. But I used to get orders from Chick-fil-A for like 9 people. So this bag has bailed me out of a lot of situations. They have better ones for like 25 bucks on Amazon. It's insulated. It's a tool I recommend. I can't tell you to have it, but for temperature control purposes, it's great. For when you're doing multi-orders, it is probably one of the best friends you can have. Keeps cold stuff cold, hot stuff hot. Would recommend that you go and get this tool and put it in your tool bag of delivery. It'll be one of the best investments you ever have. And when this whole adventure is over, you've got a bag. It's pretty cut and dry there. So I'm going to probably do more of these training videos, talk a little bit next week about Google and when to ignore Google Maps coming into Oceanside. But tell me what you think about it. Tell me if there's topics that you want me to talk about. I'm always open for suggestions. So again, Runner Rob, Chow Runners, any questions for us, bring it up in the chat. Any recommendations? I can't directly ask you a question, but if you have recommendations for me, for any of us, let us know. Thank you.